Welcome to 1870 Off-Road. This is going to be the 4-part YouTube series. You don't have to watch all 4 parts. That's why we have this intro. Covering the ESS system, its failure, its repair, the aux battery delete, the Odyssey battery upgrade, some troubleshooting, and a description and operation of how this stuff works. Let me get out of the way of the Jeep so you can see it. Jeep's front and center, not me. All right, we're fast forwarding this because, good Lord, I talk too much. Part 1 is going to be my call for help. That video is actually already made. I may not have this intro in it because I put that video out 3 weeks ago. That is when I had the ESS failure and my low voltage warning. Even after I replaced the battery, I had problems with my Jeep. That's all covered in part 1. No solution, it's just a problem. Part 2 is the Odyssey battery upgrade and the relearn process you have to do on newer vehicles when you replace the battery. They have to learn a new system. Part 3, this is the big one, is an exhaustive aux battery deleting list. I'm going to test 4 different methods for deleting the aux battery, 3 of which work, 1 did not. You can do any of the 3 you choose, but I'm doing method 4. That's the one I felt the most safe with. You can watch that video. That'll be part 3. And part 4 is the leftovers. All the little odd things that didn't fit into a video. I'm going to explain the fuse array. I'm just going to take my fuse array out. I'm going to test it. Mine's good. I didn't have to replace it. So I put the same one back in. But you're going to see how I did that in case you ever break your fuse array. You're going to see me checking battery voltage and mapping a schematic out in my head, trying to figure out how the system operated, my baseline for troubleshooting. Then after all that, you're going to get a description and operation of the smart alternator system, the charging side, and the power side of this. All these components that make this smart alternator system operate correctly. All 4 parts divided up, easier for you. Hope you enjoy. So what now? Disconnect the negative terminal. Any more? All right, with that displaced, now I can take these out. That's my jumper. My jumper is out. Alright, if you ever want to do this and you have an aux battery, you need to split these cables first. Since I don't have an aux battery, I did not have to split the cables. Otherwise, if these terminals touch, you'll be buying a new fuse array. Or possibly whatever they're connected to.
He's teasing the Joy, who now becomes the veteran. He's their anchor, their constant. Then there's Zane Smith, who's kind of a wild card because he's technically...
Alright, let's go measure this. So, I'm going to test continuity across the fuses. Have continuity there, so let's see. This is N2, N3, N4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Fuse is good. So it's not that. Easy elimination. For future reference, if I ever need to replace it, there's the part number. Right there. I'm going to hold it there for a second, because in the future, if I ever break this thing, I'm going to log in the video. 683688853AA 33363364. I have B plus 150 amp, 150 amp, 60 amp, 125 amp, 300 amp. There we go. If I ever had to place it in the future, I don't take it apart. I just watch my video. Alright, I mean literally before the video I'm watching is over, I just want to add. I've took that out, put it back in, everything tested good. It was really easy. The wires stayed generally where they gotta be. Put my jumper back in, bolted my aux beam switch controller back down. I'm about to reconnect the battery, and then as far as removing the fuse array, that's how you do it right there. Really easy. This is on a 2018. I do know in some other Jeeps these cables here are swapped, so it's possible. One post is from the main battery, one post is from the aux battery, and one post ties the two together to some kind of voodoo witchcraft, and then everything else is powered off the buses. So anyways, that's a quick note there. I may not have covered it. In conclusion, I mean guys, it took me 5 minutes to pull that fuse array out. That was a really easy job. First time I ever saw it, it looked really intimidating. Then I did it, and it's really easy. So, nothing to it. Right now, vehicle off, I'm connected to ground. Best schematic I can find is on a forum, so the information I have available to me shows that N1, from what this guy researched, comes off of the aux battery, goes through a power control relay into N3, and N2 comes off the main battery. So yeah, I should have 12 volts at all three of these. Well, at 12.7 here, 12.7 volts here, and I have 12.7 volts here. So as you can see on my meter, I have 12 volts at all three of these spots. So one of these, if I'm reading this right, comes off the main battery, one of these comes off the aux battery, and the other one is going out to all the main stuff in here to power. So this is obviously the winch, there's no voltage there. This is the plate here, 1.2 volts there, 11.8 volts there. So this here is connected to my aux battery. I got 11.8 volts, probably 11.8 is too low, that's why it's failing. It's the battery intelligence sensor underneath that, I think is what that is. But so this is my main terminal, this is my aux terminal. So I'm gonna disconnect. Now that I know this is my negative, I'll split them and I'll look for 12 volts when I do it the other one. So that's that one. Now let's disconnect this. And if I'm not mistaken, it's that one there. So right here, 12.1 volts on this. I need to charge this battery up. Let's go to the positive terminal for the aux battery here. Nothing there. Let's go positive back to the main. Let's go to the ground from the aux battery. Nothing there. Of course, you measure between the two. Nothing there. So I have correctly disconnected the two cables. This one here went to the aux battery. This one here went to the aux battery. That would be the aftmost of the three here, and that'd be the one that was under this big 13mm here. So what I wound up doing on mine, this is 2018 JL with a 3.6. The left, or the aft, I guess you would say, battery terminal post, the black cable there, and it looks like it went straight down into there. There's two cables that go down there. So it was this one here, and then it was the cable right here that was on this big stud on mine. That was the two that go to the aux battery of mine. I still got them hooked up with the main battery disconnected. Right there, I pulled these two cables out. I'm still reading 11.8 volts. Now that, of course, is why my ESS system shut down. So, if you have a diesel, I learned this watching a video the other day, you have an access panel right here to pull your aux battery out. Because in a diesel, your aux battery is actually, your battery's back here, your fuse panel is somewhere over here. I don't know exactly where. But anyways, because the battery is here, the aux battery is down there. That's why I pull mine out from the fender ladder. But if you have a diesel, you have a really easy removal of an aux battery. All right, everybody, in 1870 land, after 3 weeks of chasing wire schematics, playing with an altimeter, running wires on this Jeep, we have finally fixed the issues I had. We've finally deleted the aux battery, upgraded to the Odyssey. I now understand how this charging system works. And it's different, let me tell you that. And this is probably pretty common on any new car made nowadays. But obviously anything else you can see, like in the side right here, you can see the Silverado. On the side of that, you can see the Toyota, whatever that thing's called, hatchback thing, Matrix. The F-150 I got parked over there. My Kubota tractor I got parked right over there. Or any of the other old Chevys I used to have back in the day. I'm a Chevy guy, by the way, in case you didn't know. Me having a Jeep video with an F-150 over there, I'm a Chevy guy. But anyway, I mean, hey, look. Number 7 drives a Chevy. I always go for Chevy. So anyways, now that we've done all that, we understand. I've spent 3 weeks, 4 weeks maybe, since this battery originally failed and dang near left me stranded to learn this. So I'm going to explain it to you. I've done a lot of research, and I couldn't find any of this information when I was digging around on the internet. So I made my own list. I'm going to share it with you. Here we go. So under the hood of this Jeep is what is known as a smart alternator. Some manufacturers call this a variable voltage system, but this is not like old vehicles. It's not just an alternator driven by a belt that charges everything and it goes through a bunch of diodes, which is it rectifies or inverts? Rectifies alternating current to DC current. That's not what this system is. This is a very advanced, very smart system with a lot of components that you need to understand. To start with, the alternator, or as they call it in all the manuals that Jeep has, a generator. The power coming off of this is called B+, and this is where everything starts right here. We've covered the generator. Let's talk about the intelligent battery sensor. This right here on a negative terminal, that sensor measures a lot of stuff about the batteries. It pulls current going through here. It measures state of charge of the batteries. I believe it also measures something else that I can't 100% remember. It is used to make calculations for how much power is needed to charge the batteries. You also have your power distribution center. This is your fuse box, but it's a little more complicated than a fuse box. On this end right here, you have your fuse array. You'll hear me reference N1, N2, N3, N4, I think it goes all the way up to 8, N8. These right here are posts, like a bus bar, and each one of these posts has power going to it, and there's a big metal plate with a fuse assembly. You'd have seen me replace it earlier. That helps distribute some of the 12 volt power here. And finally, way back in here under the dash, and I don't know exactly where, just somewhere in here under the dash, I've never messed with that component yet, is your body control module. It's a computer, and it takes all the readings from the alternator, and there's a smart regulating something or another inside that alternator. You got the intelligence sensor here. All these sensors and all this stuff is calculated by this computer. And all these calculations are used to regulate the alternator. So, the purpose in all of this regulation is for a little more power and a lot more efficiency. Not having this alternator continuously running makes your engine just a little bit more efficient. And all these engines, the reason why they're all so complex is they're trying to gain efficiency. They're trying to meet fuel efficiency standards, and this is how they're doing it. The same reason why your engine stops and shuts off at red lights. It pollutes less, it consumes less fuel, therefore makes it more energy efficient. That's the purpose behind all of this, and that's what all this complexity is all about. Normal operation of your smart alternator system. When you fire this thing up in the morning, you've been sleeping all night, system's cold, and you do the initial drain on your battery, the smart alternator should put out about 14 volts for a few minutes as it's learning the new system. It just started up, it's got to recharge your battery from the start. Maybe you've had, like me, I got cameras running all night long on my Jeep, so the battery is constantly getting drained a little bit. As you're doing all of that, the smart alternator is going to initially charge, and as you drive, you'll notice the voltage output, if you're watching it, will begin to drop. Like that. So, eventually down to where whenever you're running, your voltage output of your alternator will be about what your battery is. So you may sometimes be running 12.6, 12.8 volts. That is completely normal with these new systems. It's not like these old Chevys over here that ran 13.8 to 14.2 the entire time. When you are driving normally, especially when you're accelerating, it does not let the alternator put out any current. It draws mostly off the battery. Your alternator is essentially idle, and it gives you all the power of the engine without the drain of the alternator. This also gives you power. This also gives you fuel efficiency. Whenever you're coasting, it is then smart regulating the voltage to not only power the vehicle, but also to maintain a state of charge on the batteries. It is also measuring the health of the batteries while it's doing all this. Again, that's where your body control computer comes back in. Now, when you're decelerating, you have what is called regenerative charging. I think it's regenerative charging. Essentially, when you're decelerating, it's like an electric vehicle. It allows you decelerating, and that is a restrictive load on the engine, and it charges it back up to 14 volts, and it top charges everything, and it also helps you decelerate. That is how this is designed to function. The entire time I've had my Jeep has never done that. And if you've watched the history of my videos, you know I had a lot of aux battery problems. So apparently there's been something wrong with my Jeep electrically the entire time I've owned it. And when I finally fixed it, it acted nuts. It didn't know what to do. We'll cover a little bit more of that in a second. Let's talk about power. You have a main battery, and most of your new vehicles, you have an aux battery, which is buried under here. I get mine out through the fender liner. To me, that's easier. You have the intelligent battery sensor. We covered that a minute ago. You have a PCR. That's your power control relay. It's also under here, but it's behind your aux battery. That power control relay distributes charging voltage between the main battery and the aux battery. It also can tie them in parallel and separate them back apart. When you pull your 42 fuse, I believe that's the piece you're deactivating. I'll show you where it's at. You go down here in your fender liner, your aux battery, turn it a little bit. Aux battery is right about here. Directly behind your aux battery on the front of the firewall is your power control relay. What initially made my vehicle go completely nuts was that I had my trickle charger charging a dead battery to keep it running for a week. I then used my new chopped off battery and put it back in there. And after I deleted my aux battery, I had only one battery with a brand new one, a brand new state of charge, and I went to drive my Jeep. It gave me a low voltage warning, told me to basically go park it immediately. This thing's about to die. That was with a brand new battery. That was when you see the get help video. So that is mostly a self-induced problem, and I'll show you why. This sensor right here, the intelligent battery sensor, was doing its job. It was measuring the battery voltage as it was going out to the vehicle. Because the battery was dead and I was recharging it every day, it didn't understand why the battery was getting recharged. I was using my trickle charger right there, and I was recharging this battery every single day. So as I'm recharging this battery every day, not this one, the old battery, as I recharge that old battery every day, trying to keep it topped off, it was basically confusing the computer. It has a smart system. It did not understand what I was doing. So whenever I put this new battery in there with a great state of charge, the learning process was all messed up. I then messed up the learning process because during softball season, I do not drive this Jeep. It basically sits here parked. My daily driver is that truck right there. This Jeep, I mean, I keep my softball gear in it, and we use it to go to softball games, but my softball field is about 5 minutes in that direction. Well, 10 minutes, but 3 miles in that direction. You got to go around a big creek and some hills and stuff. But during softball season, and that's when the Jeep had its issue. During softball season, because I don't drive it, it just sits here most of the time and doesn't hardly get used. And because it's not an on-road vehicle, I built this Jeep, bought this Jeep for the purpose of riding trails. I got the truck to drive daily, and I just use this when the truck breaks. So because of that, there's always a drain. I think that's why my aux battery, and one reason, was always failing, because the aux battery just couldn't ever get a good charge, because the thing would sometimes sit 5 days not being driven. You can't just trickle charge these batteries. That causes issues. So all this stuff messed up the learning process. When I went to drive the Jeep, the computer was confused, and it left me stranded. If you saw the YouTube short video of me doing the stars time lapse, that's where I stranded the Jeep at. I was actually right down there in the field. But I was down there and the Jeep about died. I had to go down there to jump start it, bring it back up here to the house. All this was because the computer did not know how to read this new battery. That's what my problem was all along. So partly self-induced by not understanding how the system operates, but also it's just a complex system, and there's not any descriptions in the owner's manual that I could find that explained all this. So in conclusion, I'm going to say that the smart alternator system, turn the camera up just a hair, is a very complex system. It is designed to give you a little bit more efficiency. I'm not sure I'm going to like it when this vehicle gets older, because it's just a lot of components. It also makes you understand why vehicles are so expensive nowadays. You don't just put a little engine in it with a little alternator and drive everything. All these different computers and complexities, get over here to the sun, to make this vehicle operate. So all that being said, if you ever go to change your battery, you're gonna have to drive the vehicle, let it run for a while. I've covered this earlier, long distances, shut the vehicle down, let it completely shut down, go back to a full open loop mode when you go to restart the engine, let it completely relearn the battery again. You gotta do this several times, because every time you drive the vehicle long distance and park it overnight, it's relearning the system. So that's what it takes to make this thing relearn. That's what I was not doing, because I was not driving long distances. I'd start the vehicle, drive it 10 minutes, shut it off, be 2-3 hours at the ball field, drive back home 10 minutes, shut it off, not drive the Jeep for 4 days. It completely messed up the learning process when I changed the batteries. That's what caused my initial issue. And that's where all this chaos began. Now that we figured all that out, I have now learned what a smart alternator is. Believe me, 3 weeks ago, I'd never even heard of a smart alternator. That's what these new vehicles have. That's what all vehicles are going to have in time. It's just the way they're all going. So hopefully this makes some sense out of everything I've dealt with, and hopefully you can learn from my mistakes and you can also learn from my growth. Because I searched this stuff on YouTube. I searched for it. I couldn't find anything describing how this worked. Finally, the only thing that saved my life was ALLDATA. I went to ALLDATA. I printed out schematics. Schematics there. I mean, descriptions and operations. I printed all this information out. I mean, component locations. All this stuff. Here we go. One more. Schematics right here. It even shows your differencing between a 2.0 and a 3.6. How the generator is wired. There is a difference between the two. All of this stuff was not information that was readily available to me as an owner of the vehicle. I could not get this. I'm just fortunate that I have connections to getting ALLDATA because I don't own a shop. But you know, I was able to use my connections and get the information from ALLDATA, learn how this works. Now that I understand the system, I'm much better at troubleshooting this if I ever have future issues. So hopefully you have learned something from this exhaustive list of information. I know it's long. We cut it into 4 parts to make it simpler for you to be able to follow and understand. Most important thing of all, this Jeep is Jeeping. We always say in 1870 off-road, Jeeps be Jeeping. We don't always say it. It actually started about a year ago by my daughter. But that's our new thing we've been saying for the past year, Jeeps be Jeeping, and this Jeep ain't been Jeeping for a while. So it's back to running. We did Charlie's Creek this past weekend. You can see some of the mud stuff here. As you can see on the side of it, it was fresh and clean a couple days ago when I was filming. Now it's got a little bit of the mud left. We mostly rinsed off driving through the river, but there was a little bit of mud we picked up after the river, so it's still a little dirty. We got to wash it again because we got Sonoy Jeep Fest coming up this weekend. Next week is the Cohutta trip. As of right now, I'm going by myself. We'll go camp overland the Cohutta Wilderness for a couple days, so the Jeep is running. It's ready to be Jeeping. I'm excited. I can't wait. This is all I got. You're watching 1870 Off-Road. You have been watching 1870 Off-Road. With Wicked Jeeps.